The easy answer, Passover means freedom of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt about 3,000 years ago. The Seder tells that story, but there's more. The Seder interprets it and questions it too. In that spirit, we're going to ask a fifth question today. How does this ancient festival speak to our time? There is a strong feeling about Passover that it leads from the old to the new. We're going to begin with the story of a Jewish community that is quite old and is experiencing something new, and from the standpoint of its history, something quite unusual. Jim Maseda reports from the Soviet Union.
A handful of old men keeping a dying tradition alive. These Jews can read the Hebrew prayers, but for most in Kishinev, being Jewish has only meant a stamp and a passport, a harder life than others. For as long as anyone can remember, Jews have been a large community here. But for almost 75 years, the communist government tried to erase their history, their culture, their conscience. They almost succeeded.
Celebrate Jewish holidays. We celebrate when we have money in our pockets.
Passover? I moved away from all things Jewish a long time ago.
But now some are moving back, thanks to a recent law on freedom of religion, part of Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms. American rabbis have come to Kishinev to teach Moldavian children what their parents never knew: Hebrew, Shabbat. Traditions of Passover, dreams of a better life.
I came from Detroit, and I'm here a month. Every morning, hundreds of people come to the synagogues early in the morning to buy matzahs. And they come from far, and they wait long hours. Where does that feeling, sentiment come from? The Jewish people, they all have a feeling we're going to survive. They have to keep the Kaiser Passover because the Passover guaranteed our survival.
Just 3 years ago, this was an underground yeshiva. Today, its doors are open to all Jews. Abba Friedman is hopeful a new generation of Jews will discover that their history in Moldavia is centuries old. Jewish religion and culture used to thrive in Kishinev. At the outbreak of World War II, there were over 100 synagogues here. Today, only one remains. But after years of neglect, it's starting to fill up again, with Jews less afraid to be themselves. And less afraid to express themselves. For the first time in 50 years, a Jewish kiosk selling Hebrew and Yiddish language newspapers. But just across the street, a reminder of what still frightens Jews. The graffiti's message is clear: Jews, get out. This Jewish newspaper editor is listening.
I think all Jews should leave, and as fast as possible.
Brodsky says anti-Semitism has become more subtle in recent years, but no less real. Immigration restrictions have been relaxed, but that could change. The result, an exodus of Moldavian Jews, mostly to Israel and the United States.
Jews live just as bad as all Soviet people live. Only they have the opportunity to leave, and they are making use of this opportunity.
Emanuel Fremderman says desecration of his family's and friends' graves became so bad, even signs reading, "Don't touch, relatives come to visit," didn't help. So he built a large cage around the graves. Many of his Jewish friends have followed.
They protect from the stones and the hooligans who have broken these monuments.
Emanuel fears the wave of nationalism sweeping Moldavia and other Soviet republics will turn against the Jews despite some reforms. He and his family leave for the United States in the summer.
We have no real freedom at all. Not real freedom. We are only pushed in new fields, such as religion, culture, but they prevent us to move in politics, to express completely our possibility to express completely our ideas.
Don't celebrate.
Gennady says the pressures of being Jewish and trying to make it in a Soviet system are too great. He'll take his family to America next year. But his father will stay behind. Isaac, also a scientist, is torn between his future and his past.
The Jews were living here beginning from the 14th century. My father, my mother, my grandfather and grandmother and their brothers, they're all in the cemetery here.
But Isaac understands why his son must leave. He says he's sorry now he didn't do it earlier. So many relatives are emigrating, this Passover will be spent entirely on keeping track of them.
They begin in the new place from zero. So it's many problems, and many problems when with relatives, somebody remains, somebody goes, and there are elderly people.
For those who will not or cannot leave, a local charity distributes matzahs so that Passover remains a celebration. For the Lizeruyich family, it's a special expression of freedom. Refuseniks for 12 years, Alexander and his wife Margaret have been allowed to join their children in Australia. This will be their last Passover in Moldavia.
It's become very difficult to live here, so we've decided to search for our happiness elsewhere.
But happiness wrought with sorrow. Their parents and all their relatives are buried in this Jewish cemetery. And they have come to say goodbye to each and every one of them. Separation, survival, the story of Moldavia's Jews. Jim Masada, NBC News, Kishinev, Moldavia.
With us now, Jewish past are not very pleasant. Nonetheless, Jews are going to Berlin to reclaim their past and build their future. East Berlin, Soviet Jewish emigre Leonid Spector's new home. Thousands like him have gone to Germany, not Israel, to start new lives. Spector is going to language class. He knows no German. The class is sponsored by the Jewish Culture Club of East Berlin. The class goal, to help Soviet emigres establish themselves.
Seine Frau schickt an die Firma, bei der arbeitet, ein Telegramm.
Irene Runga organized this effort. She says the emigres need to learn many things in addition to language.
There are people who've never in their whole life knew what a Seder means, what Passover is. And so this year, a lot of them, for the first time in their life, will sit at a Seder table and have a rabbi in front of them and learn what it means to to be part of a Jewish history, of a Jewish people. We have to help them, so we're trying to help them to integrate as Jews. We don't want them to come here to live here as strangers, as foreigners, as people who try to understand or to be German. We think they should live here as Jews.
After class, they relax, talk about the old country, enjoy tea brewed in a samovar, if they can make it work. These men were professionals. Now they are unemployed in a part of Germany where joblessness may hit 50%. Leonid Spector was a construction engineer building nuclear plants. He and the others face a double challenge, building new lives as Germans, deciding how their Jewish heritage fits into those lives. After class, Leonid Spector continues his day, riding the train to the working-class suburb where he has settled his family. Much has changed in his world. He says he no longer feels like a Soviet Jew, but until he learns German, will not think of himself as a German Jew, just an immigrant. Leonid and his family, his wife Marina, their two children, Alexander and Maria, live in a pleasant four-room apartment. The children go to kindergarten, but they do not have to leave yet. That gives this family some extra time to spend with each other. It is a quiet moment in the lives of people tossed about by problems in their homeland. It is also a moment that raises a central question. Why have the Spectors chosen, instead of the Jewish state, to move to Germany, where barely 50 years ago, 6 million Jews were killed to solve what was then called the Jewish problem?
I neither want the living or the dead Nazis to be the victors over the Jews, and therefore have the chance to solve the Jewish Question. The Jews once lived in Germany and must continue to live here, to choose to live where their ancestors did.
But there are little things that make life less than pleasant for the newly arrived Jews. Many are housed in a building that was a training camp for the Stasi, the East German secret police. It is clean but austere, and some say representative of a continuing unease between Germans and Jews.
In reality, there are a lot of obstacles which are put up, but they always say it has nothing to do with the Jews, it's only bureaucracy, but I think it has to do with the German past. You know, there is something wrong with I think, with the German-Jewish relationship these days. I mean, and that's a continuation of what started in 1933 and what ended in 1945, but there is no, it's not the final thing, you know. I think they really have to live up to the fact that there are Jews who are different and that the Jewish world is a very, well, differentiated world, you know, that you have Orthodox, you have a-religious, you have anti-religious people. I mean, that's a whole structure, and the Germans have a real problem dealing with that.
Language is a problem, especially for the children. In kindergarten, Alexander seems part of the group when the children eat lunch. But when the kids are given free time to play, he is often left to himself. There's no one he can talk to. Despite problems, there are many pluses for the Specters. Western-style supermarkets provide an abundance of food unheard of in the Soviet Union. Fresh fruit, no lines of shoppers, and a variety of products that dazzle a family brought up in a land where you didn't get a chance to pick and choose. Of the 4,000 Soviet Jews who have moved to Germany in the past year, the Specters consider themselves lucky. They're living on a tight budget, receiving money from the German welfare system. Things will get better, they're sure, when Leonid is able to get a job. Although they're careful about what they spend, the Specters, like many parents, can't deny their children a coin-operated ride. It's a ride that's reminiscent of the life the family has faced. A bit bumpy, sometimes a little scary, but worth the experience.
We like it here, we feel safe in Germany, and most of all, we feel free.
One of the points of the Seder is to teach the children about being Jewish, the joys of it. The challenge is making this ancient ritual real. In Israel, that's not a problem. Ed Rabel reports.
To celebrate the Seder, the special home ceremony on the first night of Passover, helps Jews imagine how they were delivered from slavery in Egypt and found freedom in the Promised Land. In Hebrew, the child asks, how is this night different from all other nights? The parents abide by the biblical injunction, thou shalt tell thy son in that day, saying,
one day, that night, was clear to him that we are not slaves. What a night. All of us know God took us out of Egypt just to take us to the Holy Land.
But most Jews can only imagine how it was to gain freedom. To walk threadbare, parched by an unremitting sun, staggered on the long journey by an unrelenting desert. If you are an Ethiopian Jew, you do not have to imagine how it was. There is nothing theoretical about the long trek from famine and death in Ethiopia, wandering hundreds of miles through the Sudan to a freedom flight to Israel. So far, 21,000 have gotten out alive.
These are the most close people to the actual conditions of habitation that existed in the biblical times. So when we look at them, we also remember really that that's us, that's the way we were, that's the way we came, probably that's the way we looked when we came, more or less, when we came from slavery to freedom.
Simcha Dinitz is chairman of the Jewish Agency, the office responsible for bringing Jews to Israel.
If I look around Israel with all the faces and all the colors and all the the habits and all the garments and all the songs and all the culture and all the music. Probably the closest people to the original people who celebrated Pesach, it is to say, who went through Exodus, are the Ethiopians. They are more original in terms of the main players of Passover than anyone that I would imagine.
Ethiopian Jews are considered to be one of the lost tribes of Israel, whose roots in Judaism go back 3,000 years. For many, this is their first Passover in Israel. They sing the story of deliverance in their native language.
Ethiopian Jews see in Israel the coming to the promised land, the liberating from a status that is not befitting a true dignified man of faith.
Rabbi David Hartman is a leading analyst of contemporary Israel.
This is the land that invites belief that tomorrow could be different than yesterday, and that your history can change and offer you new opportunities to develop as a dignified people.
Still, many Ethiopians are having huge problems adapting to life in Israel. Learning the official language, Hebrew, is just one of the obstacles. Very few are befriended by the lighter-skinned Israelis, the non-Ethiopians. Yet Leo Sandaka and his wife Nanu consider themselves lucky. They escaped the famine and religious repression in Ethiopia with all 9 of their children. They are stunned by the amount of food that is available in Israel. For them, this is truly the land of milk and honey. I feel free as a Jew here, he says. I feel safe. I am home. We are like the people who left Egypt. I prayed to get here, she says. In Ethiopia, they said, "You are a Jew. Go away or we will beat you." We are happy to be here. But 20,000 Jews remain in Ethiopia still, cut off from their families and friends who got out. They cling to their primitive practices of Jewish worship in the hope that they too will make their way to freedom. All of them want to leave.
And I hope that within 1 year or less, they can, maybe earlier, they can all be with us here and end this misery and agony of families being separated.
Agony is the right word to describe how Ethiopians have been affected by being cut off from their loved ones. 1 out of 10 Ethiopian adults in this town has been treated for depression. Their relatives were stuck in Ethiopia after the Marxist government stopped the freedom flights. The flights are resuming now, but too late as far as Avraham Yeteming is concerned. Avraham's mother and brother committed suicide in Israel. His brother first because he missed the rest of the family trapped in Ethiopia, then his mother.
Life is miserable for me because, you know, mostly, of course, physically I'm here, mentally in our family, Ethiopia.
But this is the season of hope in Israel, a time of renewal. And with it comes the chance that all the Ethiopian Jews will be together in Israel. The freedom flights once again have begun landing. The Jews are coming home.
Landing here is coming home. Landing here is telling these people that their waiting was not in vain. Their praying was not in vain. Their longing was not in vain. This gives reality to Jewish prayer throughout history. This gives reality to the dreams of our people.
Ed Rabel, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Колесников?
Я.
Куда телефон?
Кто?
Не знаю, там есть кофе заварено, там в углу.
Хорошо. Если можешь, можешь не намазать. На, вот мне тут.
Я не смотрю. Не очень позднее. Можешь уже начать есть.
Кушать уже можно?
Нужно.
Так, ребята, скоро будем прощаться.
Скоро. А где наши полвосьмого? Наши базар.
Можете поговорить там. А что? Ну, не знаю. Например, в том, почему вы не кушаете.
А ты знаешь, что это?
Без понятия.
Саша дал весь уже в камеру.
Не могу показать.
Что вы там заслушали? Так, когда...
Марик, ты закрываешь нашего правителя.
Да, ты закрываешь. На самом деле, что что же вы сделали? Ну, книжку.
Если он ее еще перевернул вверх ногами.
Я не знаю. Он уже перевернул.
А потяни же книжку уже. Нет.
Мальчик на фоне этого раба смотришься великолепно. Догадается на фоне раба.
Не надо.
А что, он не похож на раба?
Он имеет в виду насчет то, что он чай пьет.
Допей за меня чай, а?
Это наш... Это завтрак многонациональных сил.
Если бы они еще с собой принесли бы еду.
Да, было бы неплохо. Так не ешь, не завтракай. Это Ой, ты уже куда-нибудь иди.
Тише, тише.
Ну что не NBC в Москве.
А что неудобно?
Ты так машину не можешь сзади?
Качество кого?
Нет, так мне надо завтра в Москву.
Вообще классно. Галя приехала. Приехала. Ты уже живешь с Леной?
Еще нет.
Еще не живешь? Уже приехала, еще не живешь?
Я еще уеду.
Спереди. Можешь там сесть, наверное. Если думаю.
А кто тебя поставил? Это стой.
Лен, скажи меня. Я хочу тоже быть умеренным. Нет, я чай не как лежать не уйду. Может, печенье, так, все. Можно? Уши. Другое печенье. Не, у нас вчера я понимаю, ты крути. Начал заниматься, уже снимается дальше. Что делать? Кто смотрит в камеру? Ты. Я буду постоянно твое лицо.
Так я снимаю.
Да прикинь, вот я тоже смеялась, я не могу, нельзя.
Как он всегда по-немски разговаривает.
Раби Якова. Там, пожалуйста, Раби Якова позовите к телефону. Порвется, куда он денется.
Надо будет
Слышишь же? Какая-то связь доход.
Реклама это тоже своего образа.
Не обманешь случай. А у нас что-то не очень такие... Ававра. Задав у нас.
Bleedaf. In English, okay?
No.
Meanwhile, you learn a little bit English. That's the next language. That's the second language. So you'll learn a little bit English, a little bit. An English soldier was shot, and this was the shot that was heard around the world, because a new world started. And that new world started with Concord. That was a shot heard around the world. Robot. Ish called Harag as her British, her Rishon, her Englishman, her Rishon, he was married. Amerikanim was married. Keneged Holam. America as the real shot heard around the world was when the Jewish people's exodus from Egypt. That really changed the world. That was really the shot heard around the world. Bishmael is not a god, and that animals are not gods. And this spread over, at least over the Western world, and changed that part of the world.
Были очень многие, значит, идолопоклонники, которые, значит, поклонялись животным, поклонялись деревьям. И вот выход евреев из Египта показал, что все это пустой звук, что все это идолопоклонство.
There are a billion people worship. Stop the traffic. It's someplace in India. The cows there, the cars go around. They don't want to touch the holy cow. Billion people, India, parts of Asia, but the Western world, our world, America, where I come from, Europe is different. What made that change? That change was made started in the first Passover, when the Jewish people slaughtered the lamb, the Egyptian lamb, right? They slaughtered the lamb, and they showed we don't believe it's a god. The Bible says that God told the Jewish people on the 10th day of Nisan, that's 5 days before Pesach, take a lamb and take it home, tie him onto your bedpost, okay, hold him there for 4 days, and on the day before Pesach, in the morning, in the afternoon, slaughter it. So the Egyptians asked, what are you taking our God? Where are you schlepping our God? So they said, well, we're going to have a feast with it. We're going to eat it. We're going to have a roast lamb in a few days. And the Egyptians already were afraid to do anything about it because of the 10 plagues. The impact already was there. They couldn't do anything about it, and they accepted it. This was the breakthrough. This was the breakthrough, and that's what now, what if some Jewish people didn't deserve to go out of Egypt? So God said that they should take the lamb and slaughter it, take some blood and put it on the doorpost. Okay? And the angel of God, God himself, went by the houses, okay, to see, is this a Jewish house or house? This is what the word Pesach means, passed over. He passed over the Jewish house, and that's where we get our name Passover. This was an education for the world, for the Egyptians of that time. The Egyptians are the foundation of civilization. The Greeks just took over and transmitted what they got from the previous generations before that, and this is our culture. And so our Western culture is different than the Eastern culture because of Passover. So Passover is not only a Jewish holiday, it's a universal holiday. If I may say in passing that Remember what an old man told you here in Kishinev, an old man with funny eyes, okay? He said that in 10 years from now, with maybe less, with all the modern communications, okay, with television and so on, this breakthrough is happening. It will happen in the whole world. The whole world is going to become at least Europeanized, a little bit somehow introduced to Bible concepts, and they are. And they are introduced. But as time goes on, it's going to be stronger and stronger. Okay.
Несколько дней они должны были его зарезать, значит, и съесть, принеся тем самым пасхальную жертву. Пашком спрашивали у них, что же вы делаете, те совершенно нормально говорили, что вот мы его должны зарезать и съесть, но так Бог наш нам сказал. У которых на месте мезузы было, значит, в крови пасхальной жертвы, значит, нарисован Симон, был нарисован. Нет никакой силы вот в этих вот ягнятах, там, камнях и всем остальном. Существует сила только одна высшая сила в этом мире. И несмотря на то, говорит Рав, несмотря на то, что сейчас именно тогда в наш праздник Песах, именно через выход евреев из Египта.
Was man hat vier Käuses. Ein Tames, und zwei sind selber gehabt, über Kachti, und eine war gesagt, eine neue Sache, slip die Yosef's Cholem. Okay? Imruli, sagt mir, Imruli Tam Shlishi. Atem יודעים? אתמול דיברנו שני טעמים.
Это сон виночерпия. Сделал стакана, поднес стакана, выпил стакана.
עוד טעם. מה שמעתם בסמינר?
לא חלמתי חלום. לא חלמתי חלום. ארבע כוסות ארבע פעמים כתוב כוס.
Где это написано?
איפה?
Где написано?
נו, רב אברהם אתמול אמר לו.
Нет, а вот что-то...
אני אמרתי, זה היה בחלום. אוקיי, אבל יש טעם שלישי חשוב. שבלבד מצרים יהיו, אני חייב לומר בלבד. There are many reasons for the 4 cups of wine. I told you 2 yesterday. Today I want to tell you a third reason, a very important reason. Besides Egypt, there were 4 great empires that conquered the world and tried to extinguish Judaism and their belief in God. They were Bavel, the Babylonians, the Persians, who took over, the Greeks who took over after Persia, and the Romans, who conquered the world and destroyed the second temple. The Babylonians conquered the first temple. So it was like prophetic. So in symbolic of those 4 empires, yeah, that disappeared almost. So we drink the 4 cups of wine. Okay, and the okay. אני אומר לכם, טעם רביעי זה בשביל 4 מלכויות שעשיתם לנגוש את ישראל. זה הבבליים שהם עשו חורבן בבית הראשון, והפרזיים שהם זה 4 מלכויות. בשביל 4 מלכויות שאנחנו ניצחנו עליהם, אנו שולחים ד' כוסות של ניצחון. זה טעם.
Да, и он говорит еще...
I want to tell you something. You know, I came from Detroit, and I'm here a month. I was in Kiev, I was in Moscow, previously in Leningrad. One of the things that impresses me most is that every morning, hundreds of people come to the synagogues early in the morning to buy matzahs. And they come from far, and they wait long hours, and sometimes it's the same other lines like in Russia. They don't even get it. They have to come again. And they come and they come. And this is true. Not only now, I was here 5 years ago, before Glasnost. The same thing happened. The government had to allow matzah baking. They couldn't stifle that. And people come. There are hundreds of thousands of people buying matzahs. Where does that feeling, sentiment come from? The Jewish people, they all have a feeling we're going to survive. And they all know from their bubbies, from the Zaydis, from their grandparents about Pesach and about a Seder. And that story is the story of their survival. So that they never gave it up. That they never relinquished. And the government, under all conditions, knew it, and they let them make matzahs. And they let them come and buy matzahs. Because in the story of Pesach, the Jewish people felt that that's a story of our survival. Now I want to tell you, if people lived through concentration camps, imagine being in a concentration camp for years and not giving up, not committing suicide, and not just falling apart. It was because they had the feeling, we're gonna last out, we're gonna win, we can't lose, we're gonna survive. They had that feeling, we're going to survive. And it was things like I just told you before about the 4 cups of wine, the 4 empires. We're going to survive all the empires. We're here to stay. And it was the story of Pesach that gave that message. And it was and that never got lost. And the people who maybe haven't got real status like we have in America, okay? But they still know they have to have matzah. They have to, because in matzah is that story. They have to keep the Kaiser Passover because the Passover guaranteed our survival. Okay, אני ראיתי כאן לפני 5 שנים, בשעה שלא היה גלסנט. ואני יש במסקל, והם שם, they get a line for matzah, not for vodka. והם עומדים על השורה, לקנות. בשביל שהם מבינים במצה, בסיפור של מצרים, שהם מצרים מספר להם ככה, שאנחנו נצחיים. מילון,
Большая очередь. И он это сравнил с очередью, как за спиртными напитками в Москве, понимаете? И это абсолютно его поразило. И стали свободными.
Eternal.
Вечный.
Вечный.
זה ניצחון?
אנחנו לא נפסוק. Eternal, okay? The Seder ends with Lashana Haba Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. Yeah? Now, if so many people are tearing themselves away and want to go to Israel because they know that's what the Seder said. Lashana Haba Yerushalayim, next year will be in Jerusalem. They never forgot that. This is the grand finale of the Seder. The grand finale of the Seder is Lashon Haba Yerushalayim, and it wasn't said for nothing. If there are hundreds of thousands of Jews from Russia and Israel, it's because of the Seder and what the Seder said, Lashon Haba Yerushalayim. Im yesh kan achshav meot alofim Yehudim sheholchim le'eretz.
Истории, то, что написано насчет Песаха, в конце написано «Следующий год в Иерусалиме». Это еще одно подтверждение. Они, может, даже и не понимают до конца весь смысл этого, но это еще одно...
אני אומר לכם עוד דבר, אוקיי? זה בשבילכם, אוקיי. כשמשה היה רועה צאן,
И спрашивают, почему он был пастухом скота именно в пустыне. И там связывается, это такое перекликается с тем, что было тогда воровство большое. Естественно...
What does that mean? The page
26-я страница.
26-я страница.
Okay. Magid, the story of Pesach starts with Hor Lachmanya. You have the matzah on the table. The instructions are that you uncover the matzah. And you say, this is the poor man's bread. Hor Lachmanya, this is the poor man's bread. that our fathers ate in the land of Mitzrayim. What is a poor man's bread? The people slave building pyramids or in the fields. At the end of the day, the foreman threw them a little bit of flour. Here's some flour. 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 F-L-O-U-R. Kemach. Okay? No some kemach. He gave them chitim. No some kemach. Asur davar. They came home with the flour. They didn't have no time to bake bread. It takes time till the bread rises. They could just mix the flour and water and roll it and make flat matzah that we have. So the Haggadah calls it poor man's bread. So we remember the poor man's bread that we had in Mitzrayim. All right, another important thing. Told you yesterday, in America, on Thanksgiving Day, so the people just eat turkey, and cranberry sauce. They don't eat the dry bread that they had in the Mayflower. So why do we eat poor man's bread? Let's just celebrate. What are we eating poor man's bread? The answer is, why do we have moror, bitter herbs? Half the Seder is bitter herbs. The red wine reminds us of the blood of children that was spilled in Egypt. Why do we do that? Why have so much bitterness? The answer is that we thank God for the bitterness. 40 times it's written in the Torah, be kind to a widow, be kind to an orphan. Remember you were in Mitzrayim, you knew how it felt. Be kind to a stranger. You were strangers yourself. So we remember that part of Mitzrayim. We remember the bitterness. Giannis, he didn't want to graze his sheep in other people's properties. He went out in no man's land to graze his sheep. And he saw a sneh. Sneh is a bush burning, and it didn't become consumed. A dry bush would get consumed in a couple of minutes. It burned and it burned, it didn't become consumed. So Moses went to see why isn't it consumed? Why isn't the bush burned up? And Hashem told him the Jewish people are going to burn and burn, and they'll not be consumed. Don't worry about it. They're going to burn, like I said before, under other empires, and they will not be consumed. But he says we have a date. I have a date with the Jewish people at this place. A bush in Hebrew is called Seneh. Seneh means a bush, a desert bush. Har Sinai is the same word, the mountain of the bushes. Our name Sinai means bush. Mount Sinai, where the Torah was given, is the mountain where the bushes grow. Hashem, God, made an appointment with Moses. At a year from now, at this date, this exact date, it's 6 days in Sivan, the Jewish date. We have an appointment here. The only reason I'm taking you out of Egypt is you should get the Torah. It isn't just you should become free. Plenty of nations became free and misused their freedom. But there's a catch to it. I'm going to free you, but we have an appointment here to get the Torah. And at that mountain, 1 year later exactly, God spoke to them and gave them the 10 Commandments, and it was the beginning of the whole Torah. יש לנו פגישה 3 שבועות הסרעה, מכה שבוע. 3 עוד עשר מכה זה 10 חודשים.
כל מכה אחת 3 שבועות.
לא.
Полный год они. Сначала были, как говорится, споры между фараоном, между его советниками. И это где-то заняло где-то около 2 месяцев. И с самого начала, когда Ашем сказал Моше предупреди царя, чтобы он выпустил вас. Потом было...
Можно было скушать все бифштеки.
Марика, можно тебе?
Нет, ко мне не знаю.
Is Amerikaans?
This comes from Hungary. They get it comes from different parts of Europe besides Russia. Yesterday, I forgot all about it.
There's not much light left. Just take some out, please explain. I need some help.
Приехал?
Приехал, да?
Yeah, they can just, Marjorie, they can go.
Вы сейчас выходите наверх. Выйди, пожалуйста, если он снимает. Не он снимает, выйти. Да, или вверх закрыть, да.
Да мне не холодно.
Значит, Галя,
А?
это вот. Идете с развилкой друг к другу.
Быстрее.
Прямо, вот так прямо и... Вот, вы сейчас выходите так вот. Идет так, это
You just go to the room.
You know, the basement, you go to the basement through a trapdoor in that living room. If you want to see it, just how people live here.
Close the door.
All right, I think you should be on your shoulder here, not on the sticks, because you're not going to be able to get any of the close shots.
For the first shot, we did.
They're 1892. Okay, they're pretty old. You know Hebrew, that? זה ספר על שחיטה. השולחי לא אומר הספר הזה. זה עוד היה... Want to take a picture of the date on this book? 1892. Is that clear? 1854. Wow. Just this date. 1854. Russia is flooded with old, even older, okay? But Chernovitz, I tell you that, Hadinim shel Pesach, Hilchos Pesach. וזה יפה, זה ניור כל כך יפה, וזה כמעט 150 שנה, כן? כאן יש עוד הסדר כוסף כאן, וזה מפורשים. זה מפורשים. וכשאנחנו לומדים קיצור זה רק בקיצור, וזה ארוך. קרוא בשבילי.
קורן?
כן.
ושכיבנו השם אלוקינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים טובים ושלום ופרוש עלינו סוכת שלומך
בעצה טובה מלפניך ולשענו מהרה למען שמך וחנן בעדנו עינינו ומהרנו ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו כי אל שומרנו ומצילנו אתה.
אוקיי, התורה, המשך.
כי אל מלך גנון ורחום אתה ושמור כת
פרוץ. כן?
כן.
כאן הנקודה כאן. Find older than this. This happens to be the laws of painting. These are different commentaries. Cycling. Cycling. He says there are forks and spoons 200 years old.
Ну подойдите сюда.
На русском на каком говоришь?
На русском. Пожалуйста.
Значит, я сейчас иду к Деборе Александровне Мелельской, инвалид. И точно...
Пожалуйста. Идите. Конечно.
Ввиду того, что вы заботитесь, да, о милосердии к Песах, я вас благодарю как руководитель милосердия наших инвалидов. Это мы отправим в коляске больной, чтобы она знала, что мы празднуем Песах. Егор Александрович, что вы плачете? Мы вам моцу принесли. Что такое? Ну мы же вас помним, Дебора Александровна, мы вас помним, мы же к вам приходим всегда.
Вы мне принесли это.
Да, я вам принесла мацу на Пасху.
Пожалуйста. Табор Александровна, вам массажик сделать?
Делайте.
Делайте массаж. Хорошо, вас заботятся, вас помнят. Приходит Ильинична к вам?
Она придет, только что вот с ней говорила.
Придет?
Мне очень тяжело. У меня была девочка месячная, я ее отправила, я не могу.
Живет у вас.
Я была в Лондоне, была в Париже. Я пианистка.
Смейтесь?
У меня нормальное давление.
Вам лекарства принесли?
Мне приносят.
Видите, у меня чисто, у нее приходит.
Они хотят знать, что делается в Советском Союзе. Очень хорошо, но я бы с удовольствием поехала бы в Америку умирать. Вы поняли? Мой ученик гастролирует в Америке. И живет тоже.
$140 на 85.
Хорошая, да, мне?
Да. Пожалуйста. У меня. Дайте. Да, поберите. Так, Вера Александровна, вы еще куда-то поедете, нет? Все?
Если вы хотите, девушка, можно вас попросить?
Нормальный массаж можно. Нет, я уже поеду тогда домой, к другому. Вы уже все, да?
Вы обычно откройте пакет и даете или просто...
Нет, просто так.
А как вас зовут?
Миша.
И фамилия?
Ольшанский.
Как?
Ольша.
Как фамилия?
Ольшанский. Ольшанский. Ольшанский.
Ольшанский.
What was it like growing up as a Jew in Kishinev? It used to be a very important Jewish center.
Как В Кишиневе раньше быть молодым евреем. В Кишиневе раньше.
Как жили, так и жили. Так жили, спокон веков жили здесь евреи. Спокон веков жили здесь евреи здесь жили, местные жители.
А было легче тогда или хуже, чем сейчас?
Ну, хуже бывает и в жизни хорошо, и плохо.
Кто как жил?
Плохо и хорошо. И как будешь работать? Остальные сами знаете, что я.
Были бедные, были богатые.
Были бедные, были богатые, были кто работал, кто не хочет работать, тот.
Does he have any intention of leaving the country? So many thousands of Jews have left the Soviet Union and Moldavia.
Ну, остальные все сами знаете, что вам объяснить.
Ну, у вас есть желание переехать в другую страну?
Я не еду никуда пока.
Почему?
Уже развалиться это легче, а как устраиваться плохо. Развалиться, продай, раздай, все, а потом как наживешь снова.
А вы с какого штата, извините? Нью-Йорк? А что, есть возможность такой, кто желает вообще это? Можете помочь им?
Нет, люди спрашивают, значит, или кто желает.
Не можем.
Да.
Вы только спрашиваете, или желание?
Вы празднуете еврейские праздники?
Праздники, когда у нас в карман деньги есть, празднуем.
Ну так шаббат по пятницам.
Да, дома нет, мне жена нет, я одинок.
У меня родители, они праздновали вообще. Они набожные были. Родители мои.
Ваши родители?
Да.
А жена ехала в Израиль.
Мой отец покойный был мясник кушер. Знаете, что это кушер?
Что это?
Мясник. Знаете, что это? Мясник. Продавал мясо.
Рубил это мясо.
Рубил мясо. Но кушер. Знаете, что это кушер?
Это...
Он кушерный был. Он был набожный.
Ну, честно, ну, как говорится,
Дедушка тоже был у меня. Содерживал синагогу даже. Дед и бабушка тоже. Бабушка кормила вообще это. В пятницу после обеда так кормили этих бедняков бесплатно.
Тут синагога есть, тут синагога есть. Тут есть синагога. Есть.
Does he feel like the Jewish culture, the religion, the identity is coming back now after so many years of repression?
Вы чувствуете, что есть возрождение